We are live.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I will call to order the Board of Selectmen meeting for the town of Northborough of December 19th, 2022 to order. The time is 7:00 p.m. I have some introductory announcements. This open meeting of the Northborough Board of Selectmen is being conducted remotely, consistent with the July 16th, 2022 Act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. All members of the Northborough Board of Selectmen are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows the Northborough Board of Selectmen to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of the meeting may do so by going to Northborough Meetings on YouTube via the link posted on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. I will now confirm that everyone can see and be seen and hear and be heard. Let's see. Scott Rogers.
Present.
Kristen Wickstead.
Here.
Jason Perot.
Here.
And Julianne Hirsch.
Here.
Also with us this evening is Town Administrator John Kader.
Present.
Assistant Town Administrator Rebecca Meekins.
Present.
DPW Director Scott Charpentier.
Present.
And Police Chief Bill Liver.
Present.
We also have Northborough Cable with us for recording purposes. Thank you very much. Let's get started. First on our agenda, as always, is public input. If there are members of the public, and I have not yet looked if they're members of the public. Oh, already a couple of hands raised. Fantastic. Who wish to speak to anything, whether it be on our agenda or not. Ideally not on our agenda because you'll have a chance during the meeting. We have Mike Hirsch here. Mike Hirsch. Come on in.
Yeah, yes, Mr. Cohn. Thank you for recognizing me.
Sure.
I'm the medical director for the Department of Public Health for the City of Worcester and the director of the Goods for Guns gun buyback program. And we just had our 21st annual gun buyback this past Saturday. And I just wanted to thank Chief Liver for having Northborough be one of the 9 communities in Worcester County that participated. Northborough was very successful. They retained 22 weapons and they were very enthusiastic about it, and they gave away a bunch of trigger locks as well. And not every community has a courageous police chief that will participate this way, and we really appreciate it. We got 191 weapons in total from county, and we're very pleased with that. And I think the county is safer, and certainly Northborough is safer because of Chief Liver stepping up like he does every year. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the comments, and thank you, Chief.
My pleasure.
Mike, I'm going to bring your hand down. If you have anything else to say, you can raise it again. And next up, we also have Lisa Maselli. Lisa, how are you?
Hello there, Mitch. Nice to see you tonight.
Thank you. What can we do for you?
Well, actually, I'm going to comment on something that is on the agenda because I didn't realize I'd have the opportunity later. I wanted to talk a little quickly about my comments pertaining to the board's decision tonight on what streets would be prioritized for the sidewalks. I again watched the BOS October 17th meeting to get a better understanding of what was discussed there. And pretty much the mathematical reality of what we're going to have is a $500,000 grant from Complete Streets. And basically about only 2 sidewalks will be able to be completed with that amount of money. In listening to the meeting, the town planner indicated that they would prefer to do the downtown sidewalks, as Pearson Blake would help to get some more business in and entice them. But the neighborhood connectivity, I hope that's the right word, again gets set aside for businesses when you do that. Maple Street, of course, the sidewalk would finish the complete sidewalk that started from Ridge to 20. And there's a greater number of vehicles that come down that speed and participate on our roads than Blake and Pierce. There's also about I think I put a number of how many neighborhoods are involved in this. About 12 neighborhoods are involved in this street. And there are many school students walking home from the high school. That would seem to me that there's more safety, connectivity, and schools, which actually checks out for 8 of the 10 evaluation criteria for ranking. So that's my big plug for Maple. And I'd also say that Allen and Hudson are also small and straight shots and might be a better bang for your buck. And so there you go. And thank you.
very much. Thank you, Lisa. Okay, I don't see any other hands raised. So with that, we'll move on to our first regular agenda item, which are a set of meeting minutes. Would someone like to make a motion on the meeting minutes for December 5th?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I move the board vote to approve the December 5th, 2022 meeting minutes as amended there was a typo. The word dusk was spelled D-U-S-T. I provided that to Diane earlier. So just a tiny amendment there.
Second.
Sounds reasonable. Motion's been made by Scott, seconded by Jason. Any discussion further? Okay, all those in favor, Scott, how do you vote?
Aye.
Julianne?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Kristen?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Vote unanimous in favor. Meeting minutes are approved. Thank you very much, Scott, and thank you for catching that that typo. Appreciate it. Okay. Next is consideration and vote to endorse the Complete Streets Project Prioritization Plan. I understand we're going to be bringing in, already on our way in, Laurie Connors. Laurie, if you'd like to turn on your camera and unmute, we're happy to have you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
DPW Director Scott Charpentier and I are here to obtain your approval on the final draft version of the Complete Streets Prioritization Plan, which was given to you in advance of this meeting, I believe in your packet late last week. So as a reminder, the Complete Streets program was created by legislative authorization through the 2014 Transportation Bond Bill. So the purpose of the program is to reward communities who commit to embedding Complete Streets design principles into both policy and practice. So the program is being administered and overseen by Mass DOT. So actually, I realized I got a PowerPoint presentation, which I haven't shared yet. So I'm gonna share that if I may.
Please do.
And I am going to put it in slide show. There we go. So this is a little bit of review. Of course, Scott and I and the team from Woodard and Curran came before you a few months ago to introduce you to the prioritization plan and hold a community input and information session. So this slide you've seen before, but this is mostly for review and also for the new folks who might be joining us this evening. So a complete street is one that is designed and operated to make travel safe, comfortable, and convenient across all travel modes. So that includes walking, biking, transit, and motorized vehicles. And it's aimed to serve people of all ages and abilities. So there are a number of benefits of designing streets in this way. The number of accidents resulting from conflicts between the various travel modes is reduced. For example, pedestrians trying to cross the street that may get hit by vehicles. It's also dangerous in a lot of locations to be a bicyclist when there's no clear accommodations for bicycles. So people are encouraged to exercise outside which enhances health by reducing obesity. The young, elderly, and people with disabilities are able to travel independently, which of course reduces feelings of isolation as well as dependence on those who drive. And an overall reduction in automobile use reduces both air pollution and travel costs. So there are a variety of different types of projects that are considered complete streets projects. There are projects that are mostly focused on improving the environment and streetscape. So these include pedestrian aimed street lighting, bike racks and street trees or landscaping, which make the streetscape more hospitable to pedestrians. The redesign of intersections, so traffic circles are a perfect example of that. Curb extensions, which are otherwise known as bump outs. Connections, network connections for pedestrian and bicyclists, for example, bike lanes and sidewalks. Pedestrian crossing modifications, so we have various locations around town that are not ADA compliant. They lack the appropriate curb, ramps, and also the pedestrian signals may not be compliant with ADA requirements. Traffic calming is another example. That's something that's been talked about for Route 20, possibility of narrowing lanes to make the crossing distance shorter, and transit improvements. So that would be bus shelters and the like. So Northborough's efforts to become a complete streets community really started a little over a year ago. In January 2022, the town adopted a complete streets policy, and that enabled the town to be eligible for a technical assistance grant. So the town was awarded $35,200 to develop a complete streets prioritization plan. And with that money, the town hired consultants, Woodard and Curran, to help us analyze our existing sidewalk network, any sort of accident information that we might have at intersections, which really helped us kind of brainstorm ideas for different projects that the town could submit and include on its prioritization plan. So we really started that process back in June. So town staff met with Woodard and Curran to go over a series of maps and kind of brainstorm an initial list of projects that we thought the town would benefit from. So we came up with a list of 24 projects. And from that point, we launched a survey. It was a 5-question survey. It was held online to try and determine what municipal priorities are. We received a pretty good return rate. 808 local residents responded to our survey. And that really helped us come up with our prioritization criteria. And then we presented our list of 24 projects that we identified at 2 different forums. The first was the Master Plan Implementation Committee meeting on September 5th. And at that point, we added another project to our list. So it grew to a list of 25 projects. And then we took those 25 projects to you folks at the October 17th Board of Selectmen meeting, where we presented information about the various projects and the survey results. And we asked for your priorities, as well as those who were attending the workshop, to help us rank those 25 projects. So now I'm going to turn it over to Scott, who's going to talk about our efforts since that October 17th meeting.
Thanks, Lori. So as Lori indicated, the Complete Streets program managed by DOT has specific criteria that they want us to consider as a community while we develop the list and prioritize the list. There's 10 specific criteria they look for in Complete Streets projects. Those are listed here. There's a variety of needs identified in the list. Lori went over quite a few of those related to accessibility. There's trails. The status of the project is important. Is it shovel ready? The other funding opportunities is important to see on the prioritization list. So when the list is developed and prioritized, there are a lot of things that are taken into consideration. The community's goals, what's most important to them, as well as funding mechanisms that could possibly get the projects implemented, as well as potential rankings and how high they're ranked on the priority list may bear better fruit through different funding applications that we pursue. So there was a lot of factors considered when the prioritization list was put together in order. The community was obviously one of them, but also we want to make sure these projects get funded and they're viable when it comes to implementation. Slide. So this is the prioritization list. As discussed in the last meeting with some minor modifications. Again, the goal and objective is to get a list that addresses the needs and desires of the community, as well as identify projects that are fundable. And the funding mechanism is not solely the Complete Streets grant, the $500,000 grant. There are a variety of funding mechanisms that are available for Complete Streets projects. And it's important that the projects are identified on a plan like this, in a master plan and in an open space plan. So when you do submit an application to a funding authority, they see it's supported by the community through a variety of inputs, public input sessions and other plans. There's funding through the Safe Routes to Schools. Northborough Public Schools participates in that program. There are ADA grants for accessibility improvements through the state and the federal government. Mass DOT also administers the Shared Streets and Spaces program. We've received grants through them in the past. The pedestrian activated crossing lights, for example, were implemented through that program a few years ago. There are trails grants available. It's important for those awarding authorities to see their projects on our prioritization list. Obviously, we have Chapter 90 and local appropriations available. And there's also the one-stop funding mechanism through the state that identifies a lot of different funding programs like MassWorks, the downtown initiatives that can be utilized for projects like this. So the top 10 are more or less the focus of the early Complete Streets grant applications. You'll see a resident called earlier with a question about Maple Street. You'll see Maple Street does rank in the top 10. Below that are some of the downtown initiative projects like Blake Street and Gale Street. The thought there is that they can be coupled with other downtown projects through a larger funding mechanism if needed in the future. So this list has been put together through a lot of public input, as well as input from the consultants and funding agencies on what the most viable projects are, and to try to get those ranked highly. Next slide. So once the list is endorsed by the board, we'll submit it to Mass DOT. We expect that to happen this week. There's a little bit of back and forth between DOT and the community to address any comments they have, update any estimates, or modify or clarify some of the project scopes. Once the prioritization plan is approved by Mass DOT, we are then open and eligible for grant applications. Again, that $500,000, I believe Lori mentioned it to the board at the last meeting, does not need to be a single project, does not need to be a single year. You can bundle a series of smaller projects together. You can use it to fund a half of a big project. There's a lot of flexibility, but it's critical that the projects that we want and need are on the prioritization list. So that's pretty much the summary of where we are. If the board has any questions, Lori and I are here to answer them if you have them.
Members of the board, if any, I can't see everybody's faces, so anyone wants to shout out, go ahead. Oh, now I can see everybody's faces.
Yeah, I've got a question.
Sure, Scott.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. So it sounds like with the flexibility, we could make a single grant request for the full $500,000. And then we have our list of 25. Would we have to submit a subset of that list that we think values 500,000? Or do we have the flexibility to say, we're going to use that 500,000 as we see fit across these projects in priority order, for example?
We would have to submit for specific projects, and the design costs associated with the projects are borne by the town. They are
Yep.
Chapter 90 eligible, but what typically happens is you get a few projects designed to the point where you have a quality construction cost estimate, and then start, picking the ones that can be funded through the different mechanisms out there.
Okay, so if something on our list was not ready for construction estimates yet, I take, for example, 6 and 7, right? Because those are items that are currently going through feasibility or perhaps feasibility in the case of the multi-use trail, if it's
Exactly.
approved as a CPC. We would, if we move forward, our specific application might skip those 2 items because they're not construction ready yet.
Correct.
Yes,
Sorry.
we wouldn't be able to submit projects unless they are shovel ready. So they would have to be fully designed in order to meet the criteria for funding.
Okay, so then that leads right into the next question. Thanks for letting me keep going. Is then, do we have an indication of which of these, let's say top 10, are designed and would be ready to go?
None of the projects have been designed yet. There are projects that can be bundled up as part of the downtown master plan that it would be a little early to move forward with. For example, Pierce Street sidewalk replacement. I wouldn't imagine us submitting an application and a full design soon when we're in the middle of doing a downtown master plan. Looking at some of the further out projects, identifying which ones are financially feasible with the $500,000 and are somewhat quicker to design. For example, Allen Street, number 8, that's going to require easements from private property owners or acceptance of land. That requires town meeting action. That one wouldn't have to be timed according to the town meeting schedule. So that there are a lot of criteria balancing out there.
If we were to take the downtown project as an example, right now we are doing a visioning process. What I anticipate is that if we wanted to apply for complete streets funding, right now we're in phase 1. Phase 2 would be to actually hire a consulting engineer to design a project. So that's probably going to be in the neighborhood of 200 grand. So we could pay for that with municipal funds, or we could submit a grant application to pay for that. Of course, if you're seeking design funds through grants, then that will delay the project because usually there's a several month lag between submission of a project and the actual grant award, and then the procurement process, and then the start. So the fastest way to proceed is to go forward with municipal funds. The design process will probably take about a year, and then we would be ready to submit for construction funding. So chances are a phase 1 downtown project would be at the order of magnitude of $2 million. So 500,000 would only be a portion of that. So we would also have to find other sources of funding, whether that would be grant money or whether that'd be town appropriation. I don't know at this point. So this is kind of just an example of what we could be looking at if the town wanted to go forward with a downtown revitalization project.
Okay, so when the projects get designed, we have that figured out is after the projects are designed is when we would submit the complete streets application, and we've got significant work for that design to happen first. So it's not like
we would
tonight
need,
we're not.
oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, I say, so tonight there's not an urgency because we want to get a grant application out the door soon. Our work tonight is to review the priorities that have been put together, knowing that each of these needs to go through some design work that'll eventually lead to, when the timing is right, we'll submit the complete streets application.
This is not an application for design work. So
You're right.
this is just a
All that has to
planning.
happen
Yeah,
before.
This is
we
just a
submit.
planning document. So it doesn't preclude. So we have a list of 25 projects. So let's say that we decide that the priority is going to be Maple Street, for example, the example that the resident brought up earlier. So that's number 9 on our prioritization list. We don't necessarily have to go in order. Usually what you want to see is you want to see the projects that are kind of your top projects to be listed in the top 10. But you can jump around. So you could, instead of going with Pierce Street first, you could decide you want to go to Maple Street because there's some pressing reason to go with Maple Street. Or maybe there's like a new grant opportunity that arises that says that Allen Street is the best project to advance with. So this doesn't make you go in this order. It just tells the state that, okay, downtown revitalization is a huge priority for the town. And also another huge priority is safe routes to school. So these are the projects that are in our top 10, and then we can kind of pick from there. So if you approve this prioritization plan, you are not committing to going in this particular order is I guess the point that I really want to convey.
Okay.
One of the nice components of the change in funding of the 4-year outlook for $500,000 allows exactly what Lori's describing as a timeline for a downtown project. We're in a feasibility stage, then you have a design phase, then you can finalize the design, and we're still well within the 4-year window if the decision was to utilize Complete Streets funds to complement that project. It provides the board and the town a lot of flexibility, which is nice.
So that's great. So our immediate step, which is the filing of the prioritization plan, doesn't lock us in. So that you answered that perfectly, Lori. Thank you so much. And then just one final question, and then I'm done. On 6 and 7, the idea, was there any thought about prioritizing the bridge ahead of the multipurpose trails, since that crossing kind of seems logically to need to be in place first before we do much more on the overall trail?
You know, the order actually, we bumped these projects up. When we did the initial ranking, these projects fell much further down. I believe the multi-use trail was number 12, and the bridge project was even further down there because of the prioritization criteria. But because they're projects that we're currently working on, and also projects that are very popular, we bumped them further up into the list. Honestly, the reason why I put the multi-use trail above the bridge project is because it checked more boxes in the prioritization criteria. So
Gotcha. Okay.
if you look at the bridge project, let's see, just bear with me a minute. That only received a score of 3 initially, whereas the multi-use trail received a score of 5. So that's why I put them in that order.
Okay, cool. And like you mentioned, we're not locked into that order of execution, so it's really of no import. Okay, thank you so much. I'm good on my questions.
Any other members have questions? Kristen?
Hi, thanks, Laurie and Scott, for this. So number 9 on Maple Street, it's good to hear that, you're not locked into a certain order. So I won't go into detail on that, but it does look like there might be some errors on the project description for that one, because Lanthorn Road and Hamilton Road, I don't think are off Maple Street. And it says it's with curbing from Lanthorn Road to an existing sidewalk on Hamilton Road. So I mean, I
Yeah,
don't know.
that's supposed to be out of the, I'm sorry, that's out of the Davis Street line.
Okay.
That's incorrect.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So you guys can, I'm sure you'll figure out what it's supposed to be and fix it. But I just thought I would point that out because I was very confused.
Good
so-
save on that one. So yeah,
Yeah.
we'll definitely double check the description.
So,
Maybe
yeah,
it was a copy and paste error when they
Yeah,
did the order.
That's what I was guessing,
Yeah.
that it was, supposed to be from some other road. Yeah. So, yeah, maybe it's Ridge to Bartlett or something like that. I'm not sure. Anyway, so, okay. And then I have a sticky note with a few other questions. So, the bike lanes, and this isn't in the top 10, I don't think, but the bike lanes on Bartlett Street, I thought we had money from Amazon for that. So I wasn't sure why it was still in this grouping, because I thought that was kind of already paid for.
We received funding from Amazon for a variety of mitigation measures. The addition of shared use lanes on Bartlett Street was included. The analysis resulted in the need for shoulder widening in order to accommodate the required lane widths for the shared lanes, specifically at the intersections, the intersection with Lyman and the intersection at Cedar Hill. That funding didn't cover it. We did submit an application to the Shared Streets and Spaces program through Mass DOT to try to fund the full program, which was more than just pavement markings, it's box widening. That's when you extend the limit of the roadway with full depth construction beyond the shoulder. Unfortunately, that funding was not awarded. It is still available and eligible, as is the Safe Routes to Schools. And at the time of that application, Northborough was not a participant in the Safe Routes to Schools. So now there's another funding mechanism open for that work.
Oh, okay. Okay. So you've got it all figured out. All right, good. And then, okay. Okay. I guess that was it. That was it. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. Anybody else? Julianne?
Yeah, hi. First, I have to say that I'm having real difficulty with my internet connectivity. So if I freeze, just ignore me. But my question is, okay, so the prioritization list right now sounds very flexible. When we do move forward with the projects, how does the community get to weigh in again about which ones come first, second, third, fourth, and fifth?
Well, the decision on what projects move forward first will largely be dependent on where funding is available. If we were to focus on Maple Street, that's a long design process with likely a lot of easements or takings along the corridor. The downtown initiative would all be through the planning study that's being done now. If we were to allocate submit grant funds before that happens, we'd have to have design services completed on any of the Complete Streets projects. So at that point, we know what the construction costs are prior to submission for a grant application. I'm not sure, Lori, if you have anything to add on what your prior applications went through.
Yeah, I mean, right now, there are 3 projects that are currently in the works, or possibly in the works. So right now we have the bridge project, which is going through preliminary design. So that one will be first. However, it's important to note that it didn't receive a very high score in the Complete Streets criteria. So I'm concerned that they may not think that that's a competitive project. So we might have a tough time getting complete streets funding for that, but we may very well be able to get trails grant funding for that. So that's why it's super important for it still to be in the top 10 list. The other project, of course, we have a CPC application, and I know an application was submitted for ARPA funds for a feasibility study of the multi-use trail on the aqueduct. So that's another project that's going forward, and the downtown project is going forward. So those are projects that I would think might be really good contenders. The other projects, I don't believe that there's design intent currently.
We're looking at repaving of Howard Street from Church up to Washburn as part of the Complete Streets policy that the board adopted. If we were to repave that, we would have the engineers come out and design replacement of the sidewalk, especially along the cemetery side, the cemetery frontage. There's a lot of puddling there and drainage problems. There would be some drainage work on the Z School side as well. School buses enjoy parking there and causing a bit of puddling as well. So as part of the Complete Streets policy, when we're doing a road, we have to look at the sidewalks as well. So Howard Street would be one of the sidewalks. That is project 22. If we were doing Howard Street, we would absolutely do the crosswalk across Church Street over to Lower Pleasant at the same time. It's logical. It's in the right proximity.
Thank you. Julianne?
I'm sorry, that's a good explanation of how your thinking will develop as you decide on the projects. But if the people in town feel, for example, that Allen Street, let's just take that as an example, is the top priority, even though it would be more money, where in this whole process does the town get to say, hey, we want this project. We know the other ones are easy, but this is really important to us. What is it when we approve this tonight? Is that it? There's, then it just gets put on a list somewhere where there's no more input, or is there going to be more input?
Well, I imagine through town meeting. So of course, the Allen Street project, if the town were interested in going forward with that, then of course there would have to be an article at town meeting to request funding for design. And if they decided that they wanted to fund the design, then they would allocate the money for that purpose. And then of course the Allen Street project.
Allen Street project needs easements. That's going before town meeting no matter what. Maple Street will require easements and drainage discharge. That'll have to go before town meeting no matter what. We have Davis Street will likely require easements as well. River Street, I'm not sure of. Again, Barlow Street bike lanes, if we can get a grant for it. I don't really think anybody needs a referendum on us submitting a grant application to fund something that the community identified as a priority. So, Hudson Street sidewalk, that's a real short segment. I'd love to get that done just out of our either operating budgets or capital improvement plan. It's a short segment. It's critical to the Center Drive residents. It's a logical one to put in. I'd like to do that. Just do it. It's not a lot of money, so it's going to be very sporadic on how you approach each project. The trails, the multi-use trails. We're in front of CPC right now. If they approve the feasibility study and the feasibility study comes very favorable, then we go for a trails grant. We get awarded. That's what we want to do. I mean, that seems like a logical approach. I'm not sure where else we would go other than wherever the money is coming from. If it was going to be a capital project, Julian, we would have to go to town meeting, or if it was going to be borrowing, not that it would be borrowing, we'd have to go to town meeting for one of those. But all these other ones are generally grant applications for the most part.
I think if there are any projects on here that we don't want to do, we should take it off the list now. And I don't think anyone is suggesting that. Otherwise, this is, it's an overall priority list, but as Lori, you explained very, very well, we can do these in almost any order we want to, based on availability of funds and everything else. And this just sort of helps to sort it out. But I think it's more important what items are in the top 10 and what items are on the entire 25, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Julianne, does that roughly answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Sure. Yeah, I just a couple of comments from me. I was very happy to hear about the flexibility in prioritizing. So Pierce Street is an interesting one. It's something we should do, but we shouldn't do it yet because we don't know exactly what the overall downtown plan will look like. We don't know what the reuse of the existing fire station will look like once we move into hopefully the new fire station in a couple more years on Route 20. But at that point, you know, it would make some sense to do something there, but we don't even know what yet. I have waffled back and forth about these sharrows on South Street. I think during our last meeting, I was all excited about them. And then the more I drive on South Street and occasionally see bicyclists on South Street, the more I am about being nervous about something like that, because we don't have the width for a second lane and so forth. And I have read some dangerous stories of sharrows in other communities elsewhere. And I imagine myself driving and a bicyclist going at the slow speed that I ride my bicycle, backing up traffic. So I'm not sure. So I'm glad that's just barely out of the top 10. So maybe that'll cause us to think about it some more. And maybe there's another way of dealing with that by coming up with bike lanes on Davis Street or something like that as another way of routing around that area. And I was pleased to see the Aqueduct Trail ranked above the bridge. I attended a CMRPC meeting on multi-use trails a couple of weeks back, and it was brought up there to the suggestion of, if you've got a long trail with easy sections and hard sections, try to start the easy sections first so you can gather some momentum. And I imagine the trail as a whole, the bridge is going to be the hardest and most complicated and most expensive piece of that. We've obviously got to get the whole thing done in order to get from one end of town to the other. So those are just a couple of random comments, but I don't have any great objections to either any of the items or the order as presented. Anybody have any other comments or questions? All right, I have one member of the audience with a hand up. So why don't we move on to that, and we'll come back to the board momentarily. Laura Zeiton, I'm bringing you in.
Thank you, Laura Zeiton, 17 Franklin Circle. I'm really excited about the Complete Streets program that we're doing. I just have two questions. Scott, can you please confirm where the sidewalk is proposed for Maple Street?
Certainly. It's an extension from Ridge Road up to Bartlett Street. So the current sidewalk runs from down Maple Street to Ridge Road and just stops. So we would be continuing from there up to Bartlett. We're not sure which side of the road it was be on. That's the design process to figure out where it logically belongs.
I'm relieved about that one because it's always nerve-wracking seeing the students walking up and down there, and I was hopeful that that's what the planned route was. So thank you. The other question I had was about safe routes to school. I think you mentioned that, but I'm not familiar with that one. And you said that we're not participating in it, or we do participate in it?
We do participate in it. It's somewhat recent, within the past couple of years. I did inquire to the school district. I think it was my first or second year here, just kind of getting my feet wet, and we were not participating. We are now. It's driven by the school district, not by the town. So the school is sort of the driving factor for grant applications, but they work in conjunction with Public Works and Board of Selectmen to come up with projects that are viable and fundable. And generally we're the ones, Public Works, that have the DOT relationship. So we work closely with the schools on those types of projects.
Thank you. Okay, that was all that I had for tonight, but I appreciate the presentation.
Thank you, Laura. I don't see any other hands up. Any other members of the board have any questions or anything to add, or any staff members? Oh, Julianne.
Yeah, I don't think this is really the meeting to do this, but I don't know where else to put my plug in for nice wide sidewalks. From what I have read, 5 feet is the minimum. 6 feet and over is more conducive to walking, to people side by side. And also, to install, well, if you can, the natural border between the street and the sidewalk. If not, to have really sturdy curbs of granite or concrete or something like that, so that the pedestrian feels protected from the traffic. So if we can address that at some point in the process, I've heard people comment that some of the sidewalks you don't really feel super safe on.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Is the board ready to consider approving this as is?
Would you like a motion, Mr. Chairman?
I would love a motion. I'm waiting to hear if anybody has any concerns. If not, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I move the board vote to endorse the Northborough Complete Streets Project Prioritization Plan as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Julianne, seconded first by Kristen. Any other discussion? All those in favor, Julianne?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Kristen?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Vote unanimous in favor. Thank you and congratulations. And we look forward to getting all of these projects done. I know it's going to take a little while. Though.
Patience.
Look forward to the next steps, getting towards some of these things being done.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you,
for your
board members.
Thank you very much. That ends discussion on that item. Next up, already into reports. Let's see. Scott, do you have any reports?
Nothing to report tonight.
Okay. Kristen.
I have a report. Yes. Okay. So first, happy Hanukkah. First night of Hanukkah, right?
It's the second night of Hanukkah.
Second night of Hanukkah.
Yeah.
Oops.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, last night was a bit of a long night for me. Okay. So I have a couple of questions in my report tonight. So, each year we hear about what the spending for the year is going to be, and I see presentations and I feel like I must be missing the part where people discuss this and ask questions. So this is for John, because I may not have been just tuned in, but where is the best place to ask questions about all the budget things that you want to do? Or where did discussions between people happen?
So the budget process is a long process. As you know, it starts really in earnest with the meeting that we had last Thursday, the financial trend monitoring and forecasting. From here, the departmental budgets are submitted to my office. We review them. I sit down with the departments, and my job is to compile a budget that comes within the forecasted revenues, working with the superintendent. And then the appropriations committee will typically have weekly meetings where departments come in, make presentations, they ask questions, and then typically there are a couple of input sessions, and then ultimately there is a charter required public hearing. It's a joint meeting with the appropriations committee and the board of selectmen that takes place in March.
Okay.
And a concurrent with that is also the financial planning committee. Generally, they meet either weekly or every other week. Appropriations will meet one Thursday, financial planning the next Thursday. Financial planning typically focuses on the capital projects that will be going to town meeting for consideration.
Okay, and the appropriations, just finish that. You said, like financial planning focuses on capital projects, and appropriations, like how are they different?
Well, appropriations is responsible for any spending article going to town meeting. They have to provide a recommendation and a comment on that. Under the bylaws, the Financial Planning Committee is actually technically called the Long Range Financial Planning Committee. They're designed to take a more broadened view of issues that span beyond a single fiscal year, which primarily focuses on things of capital nature, items requiring debt service, infrastructure investments. They will have a very long discussion regarding, I'm sure, the Complete Streets program, as well as the pavement management program.
Okay, so if I had a question about funding something, where would the best place for me to go? Which meeting should I attend to, or which meetings should I attend?
Well, all the meetings will be posted. There will be specific input meetings. And so if you just watch those agendas, you can figure that out, identify those. And if and in between, if there are questions people have regarding budgets, I'm happy to speak with anybody that has a question regarding the town finances. I'm happy to make myself available.
Great. I know these are sort of general questions, but myself, and I think I'm not the only one who just is a little bit mystified sometimes, because like I've told you before, you explain everything very nicely in a very smooth and calm way, to the point where it's almost mesmerizing. And if you did have a question, you probably forgot what it was because of the nature of your presentation. So
well, I think it's important to note that it's typically well over a 6-month process, but the appropriations and financial planning that meet on a weekly basis to dig into the details. That's their job by charter and by bylaw, to dig into the spending plans and the capital projects in much more detail. And it's their job ultimately to furnish a recommendation to town meeting with regard to those budgets and those projects.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then, so I will keep an eye out for those meetings and agendas. And so, okay, 2 more things. My quote is, Hanukkah is about the freedom to be true to what we believe without denying the freedom of those who believe otherwise. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs said that. And then that made me think about the DEIB committee and reminded me that I wanted to ask Becca, have we got a meeting on the calendar for them yet? Becca here? Oh, there she is, right? She's behind the compass. There she is. Hi.
Yeah, our committee is meeting Wednesday.
Oh, okay.
This week.
Where are you meeting?
Remotely on
Okay.
Zoom. Yep. So our agenda was just posted today. So it has the YouTube link on it. So if folks want to tune in and watch the meeting, we'd love to see you there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Great. And that ends my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. Julianne, did you have any reports?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Master Plan Implementation Committee met last week, and our consultants, Weston and Sampson, had spoken to 5 out of 6 people, stakeholders, about downtown revitalization project. And I think it's important to note that in January, there will be an opportunity for all business owners to participate in a listening session. And also there will be a listening session for the general public. And then most people are probably aware, since it was in the Community Advocate, that the White Cliffs Committee received 3 proposals on reuse of the property. 2 are a lot of housing. 1 is event and community use. And the White Cliffs Committee is meeting December 21st at 2 p.m. So if you're interested, tune into that. And I'd just like to say, if anyone has comments or ideas, just to remind people that my email is on the Board of Selectmen page on the town website. And lastly, just happy and safe holidays to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Julianne. Jason, do you have any reports?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I want to echo Julianne's sentiment, wishing everyone a healthy, happy, and safe holiday season. And I just want to extend my appreciation to town staff and board and committee members for the work they've done throughout the year. Certainly, we're always seemingly facing some kind of challenging circumstance, and I appreciate the time and effort that everyone puts in to make us successful. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Jason. I've got a couple of things. Let's see. I attended the joint school committee meeting on December 7th, where they introduced the budget. For those who attended the financial trend monitoring presentation, that was alluded to as being a potentially challenging year. I think at this point, it's always looking challenging, and then it gets a little bit better. But my sense is it was a little bit more challenging from the school department sides than it has been otherwise going in. So hopefully people will be working on that, as I know they are. Let's see. I attended a water and sewer commission meeting last week, where there was some talk about the groundwater committee and things like that. And I think we'll be talking about that soon, once the planning board and zoning board get together and meet and talk a little bit more about how they view the future of the groundwater committee. I mentioned earlier that I attended a CMRPC meeting about multi-use trails. And I do want to remind everyone that the town menorah lighting event is this coming Sunday night, the 25th. I know that's a holiday for a lot of people. It'll be at 5:00 p.m. There's no expectation that people that have important family events for Christmas break with those traditions and join us. But if you're otherwise available, I'd love to see some folks there. It's going to be cold. So dress warmly, but it doesn't look like snow or anything else. It should be a good event. And for anybody who wants to sort of participate in a less formal capacity, every night at 5:00, I'm going downtown to just turn on the light bulbs of the menorah. And I've been handing out Hanukkah gelt, which is chocolate coins, to any of the kids and sometimes adults who happen to arrive. I've got a few dreidels in my pocket too, just for fun. That's a neat informal way of doing that. I do want to let folks know that the library trustees is holding an open house on the January 10th, a Tuesday, from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. It is sort of a very late introduction to the community of Jen Bruneau, our library director. Jen was hired during COVID, so we didn't have the traditional welcome to the community for her then. So 2 years and a month late, we're having that, and also introducing a couple of other new staff members that have recently been hired, and to honor a staff member that has recently retired. And emails will be going out to board members and the community in the next week or so about that. And echoing comments from other board members, happy holidays to everyone. Thank you. And that ends my report. John, did you have anything for us tonight?
Yeah, just to follow up on yours, what your comment was, I would like to announce a couple of appointments that we've just finalized. We have Caitlin Stacy, who began actually today as a full-time reference librarian at the library, replacing retiring librarian Deborah Hirsch after 17 years of service. I assume that's the retiree that you were referring to. And then we're very excited to announce on January 9th, Fungsley Kimanavong is our new assessor, and he is. I just appointed him as a new principal assessor, replacing Julie Brown Lee, who resigned in November. So Lee served as a principal assessor in Millbury since 2019. Prior to that, he was the assistant principal assessor for the City of Worcester's assessing division, where he trained and supervised all incoming residential data collectors. Prior to his work in municipalities, Lee did some work as a commercial and residential appraiser, holds a Massachusetts accredited assessor designation, and is an accredited green appraiser from the Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources. I must say, those of you that are aware of what the municipal hiring market is as of late, it's very difficult for positions like in finance, like a treasurer, collector, accountant, and an assessor. They're almost impossible. So I'm very excited that we have a top shelf candidate who will be coming to Northborough, and very much looking forward to getting the financial team back to full strength. So very positive news for us. That's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, John. I think that concludes our reports this evening. Next up, we have renewal of the Selectmen's licenses for calendar year 2023. John, do you want to give us an intro to that?
Sure. In your packet is a listing of all of the annual licenses. As per usual, building, fire, and health departments do their inspections. At this point, it's recommended that all the licenses be renewed with the condition that they receive satisfactory inspection from building, fire, and health if there's anything that's outstanding. When they go through, if they've identified anything minor that needs to be corrected, they will follow up to make sure that takes place. But essentially, you've got your restaurant licenses, your package store licenses, common victualler licenses, and your class 1 and 2. These are your auto dealer and repair licenses. So there's a full list in your packet, and the requested action this evening would be to renew those so we can get those out and issued for calendar year 2023.
Anyone have any questions? Scott?
Yeah, just a quick one. And John, you mentioned that, normally we would renew, we renew these on the condition of the satisfactory reports from like the Department of Health or the Board of Health. In the case of a couple of these businesses, I mean, they are closed with significant issues, but would still need to go through the whole Board of Health process. But with those significant closures, is it change really any of our processes about renewing their licenses? I mean, there's no idea when they're going to reopen, if they
Correct.
open this calendar year at all.
Yeah. But again, where we have licenses available, particularly our alcohol licenses, and there's really nothing for a restaurant or common vic license. It doesn't take anything away from anyone else. But the idea is they've indicated to us that they're working on reopening. One establishment I know has some septic issues that they're working through. And assuming that works out, then as soon as they're up and running during the course of the year, satisfying all of the inspections, they could get going again. So it's pretty typical to renew the licenses, even if somebody is closed on a temporary basis, to either do a renovation or to make some repairs. So that's pretty standard.
Okay.
The only one I would just note, the only one that is not reopening is Miller Farm at 277 Main Street. And we do have also, there are always somebody who might be closing on a temporary basis to renovate or make repairs. So that wouldn't hold up the license.
Great, thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions? Kristen?
So Miller Farm, the ice cream place?
Yes.
That is terrible news.
But we're hopeful that somebody will pick it up. It's a tough time to open a place like that, and when the pandemic hit, so it's you got a seasonal business opening in a pandemic. So I know they've had some struggles. So, but it's a great location. It's a beautifully renovated building, beautifully landscaped. We're hopeful that either the owner or somebody else will pick it up.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions? No other questions. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move the board vote to approve the renewal of the annual licenses for the calendar year 2023 as indicated on the 2023 license renewals list, with the condition that each licensee receives a satisfactory inspection from the building, fire, and health departments and is in full compliance with both municipal and state codes and regulations.
Second.
Motion made by Jason, seconded by Scott. Any other discussions? Okay. Scott, I do want to thank you for asking the question about the businesses that are temporarily closed. I was going to ask the same one, so that's good. In particular, one I'm interested in getting a burrito from that place when it reopens. So hopefully they'll take care of that. But I hope all Northborough businesses do and continue to do as well as possible. Any other discussions? In which case, let's vote. Jason, how do you vote?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Julianne?
Aye.
Kristen?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Vote is unanimous in favor. Congratulations on everyone's renewals. Jason?
Yes, I just want to remind the board members that having approved this license renewal, we now have to go to town hall and sign all these licenses. So I'm sure Diane will have those queued up for us and probably would like us to get in there this week to take care of that.
We'll leave you a comfortable pen.
Yes.
Thank you for the reminder. Yeah. That's a big one.
Yep. Thank you for the reminder of that, Jason. Okay. Next up, we have a couple of recommendations from the interview subcommittee. Kristen, do you want to tell us about these?
Yeah, sure. So we had, again, we've been so lucky to have such great volunteers applying for boards and committees that they're uniquely qualified to serve on. So Erica Zeiger applied to be on the youth commission because there was one opening, and I think some of you probably know her from her work with the local veterans groups, but she in particular has worked with people. What was it and specifically that really
The Soldiers
struck me?
Legacy Fund, right?
Yes, but she specifically with that group has been involved in maybe I'll just look at my notes, but dealing with people who are really struggling with mental health issues, and the Youth Commission does a lot of that kind of thing. So her background is so perfect. She's worked with military families who have lost a parent in combat. So, that's a really tough thing. And there were some other details. So we were really excited to recommend Erica for Youth Commission. And then the other applicant was, I have Erica's really long resume here.
Why don't we wrap up Erica's if somebody would
Should
like
we
to-
just do that one first?
Yeah, sure. Let's make a motion on that since
Do it
you're just
separately.
talking
Great.
about her.
Sure. Okay, hold on. So I move the board vote to appoint Erica Zeiger to the Youth Commission for a partial 3-year term as recommended by the interview subcommittee.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Kristen, seconded by Julianne. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Jason?
Aye.
Kristen?
Aye.
Julianne?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Vote is unanimous in favor. Thank you and congratulations, Erica. And we have another one. Julianne, do you want to take us into that motion or any other descriptive information?
Sure. So Amanda DeRosier Millette is hopefully from alternate position on Historic District Commission to a full-time voting member. And she really impressed us with a project she's doing about researching the people who our elementary schools are named after. So, and then we'll be presenting it to the students. And I think many of us would like to hear that presentation as also. And she came highly recommended by Norm Corbin, their chairperson, as a really active member on that committee. So if I may, I'd like to move that the board vote to appoint Amanda DeRosier Millette to serve as a voting member on the Historic District Commission for a partial 1-year term as recommended by the
Interview subcommittee.
Yep. Julianne's voice broke up, but we know what she was saying.
And I just wanted to add,
I'm sorry, just procedurally, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Kristen, go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to add that, so she's been part of the committee as an alternate. Right. So that's why Norm wanted to keep working with her.
Great, thank you. All right, motion made by Julianne, seconded by Kristen. All those in favor. Kristen, how do you vote?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Julianne? Julianne, are you there? You look very frozen. All right, we'll come back to you, Julianne. Jason, how do you vote?
Aye.
All right, I'll give it a few more seconds. It would be improper for us to assume a vote, but if she has briefly left the meeting, we can certainly continue. 3, 2, 1. Okay, I assume Julianne is having technical difficulties and can't vote at the moment. I will also vote aye. I will declare it. Oh, Julianne, sorry, you're back? Oh.
She has been freezing off and on. So
Yeah,
there she just blinked. Wait.
Okay. All right, we're anxiously waiting your vote on Amanda's appointment. How do you vote?
Aye.
Okay.
I keep freezing. I'm really sorry.
That's perfectly fine. These things happen. I also vote aye. Vote is officially unanimous in favor. Congratulations and thank you, Amanda. Also from the interview committee, I'll set this up very briefly that a couple weeks back, Kristen contacted me with some ideas on how to revise the application form. I think generally to make it a little bit more friendlier to applicants. I suggested that at the next interview subcommittee meeting that she and Julianne give it a discussion, which they did. I don't know if everyone has watched that meeting, but Kristen, you'll be able to walk us through that process and some of your recommendations, if you could.
Yeah, sure. So I don't have the old
It is in the packet on
the old one.
Yes, it is.
right?
Yeah, Di was nice enough to put it just after the recommendations.
Okay, let me find that. Yeah, here. So
Page 49 of the PDF.
Yeah.
49 and 50 has it.
right. So you see the old one has, if everyone is looking at it, or maybe you just remember having read it many times probably. But the wording is a little stilted, and if we tend to have a lot of openings on our boards and committees, so we want to make it a little more welcoming and sort of encouraging people, like, you should fill this application out. So there's that aspect of it. And then there's just the aspect of it that this is a weird hobby of mine. I really like to revise application forms. I did it for some of the scholarship committees that I've been on in the past too. People think I'm a little wacky, but it's very satisfying for me for some reason. So, and I do a lot of editing for my job. So things like, have you attended any meetings of this BCC, kind of make it sound like, well, and if you haven't, you shouldn't even bother applying. Now, a lot of people won't see it that way, but some people might. So it's not gonna be a big deal to change some of the wording. And also, as I read these applications, and I see people's phone numbers, I think, if that were me, like, I wouldn't really want it's a lot of times it's their cell phone number. That is a pretty private number. And then it's out there on our town, website, or it's in the packet. And so anybody can really look at it. So
Kristen, I'm going to gently interrupt you for a second because John has his hands up, and I
I'm sorry.
Yeah, just a real simple answer to that is this kind of dates back before we were putting everything up on the website. So I've spoken with Diane Wackel in our office. We're just going to redact that personal information, which is appropriate. Email, personal phone numbers to be redacted, and leave the balance of the information moving forward.
Perfect.
And I
That's
did
great.
notice that I think in the packet that for tonight's meeting, they are redacted, and I
Yes.
appreciated that. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that
We
makes,
still need the information, but moving forward, when we post it, we'll redact it.
yeah, exactly. Like, absolutely. We need the information. So yeah, Di needs information. And sometimes we need to get in touch with people and say, oh, can you come at a different time or whatever. So, and then I also reworded some of the other questions, like, are you a resident of Northborough? Because that's sort of the most important thing. Like, people have to be living in the town to be able to apply for these boards and committees. So that's a #1 priority question. And how many years have you lived here? I think that's a good question. I think it's interesting whether they say 1 year or 25. it doesn't matter. It's all good. But it's just kind of an interesting conversation point for the interview committee. And then what about this interests you? That's a no-brainer. That's one of the questions we always ask these people, like, why did you pick this particular committee? And generally people have already really thought about it very carefully, and that they have a really good answer to that question. Once in a while, their answer isn't really as well thought out, and that's something we should know. And how did you hear about the opening? That's not a deal breaker for me at all, but it is something I've been asking people because we have had trouble filling some of the spots on some of the boards and committees. So I think it's good to know, like, where our communication is breaking down, if it is. And then if it's not a new committee, have you been able to watch any of the meetings, or have you reached out to any of the members of the committee? Because that sort of seems to be the two ways people sort of find out about the committee they're applying for. They either know someone on the committee and they talk to them about it and say, do you think I would be a good fit for that? Or maybe I might be a good fit for that, or whatever. Or they just watch a meeting because they don't really know anybody on it, but they think it would be a good fit for them. And then they watch the meeting and they figure out that it would or that it wouldn't. And there are other questions that we, like, are there any changes you would like to make if you are appointed to this? BCC is the question that used to be on there. We just finagled that a little bit and changed it to what might be your goals for this BCC. Because sometimes people have great ideas right off the bat, and sometimes they don't. And either way is fine, but it's good to have that conversation right away. Or at least for them to have a place to write it down if they want. And then this has always been a thing for me, is what volunteering have you done locally? So when I started becoming involved in town, my history was mostly volunteering with the schools, with mostly Peasley in the high school, but also a little bit the middle school. And those are really, really important volunteer jobs that people do. Sometimes people volunteer coaching local sports, rec sports, or the soccer or whatever. And all of that is really important. And we want those people, when they get to a point in their lives that they have time, to feel like, okay, jumping into a town board or committee is a good progression for you because you're involved in your town. So that's, I feel like, a better wording than, what was it like? Was it even on here? Oh, please list the boards, committees, and commissions you have served on. And it doesn't say anything else specifically about what other volunteering in town have you done. So I feel like that's really important. And then if you feel your occupation or other volunteer work is relevant, mention it, but you don't have to. That's pretty much already on there. And then any special skills, knowledge, or qualities, that was, we just combined two questions. That used to be two separate questions, one at the beginning, one at the end, but they were all sort of asking the same thing. One of them used the word attributes, which is similar to qualities. And then if you feel your educational background is relevant, listed here. But again, my educational background wouldn't have been relevant to this necessarily. I studied Russian language and literature in college. Like, no, that hasn't come up yet on the Board of Selectmen. And I was a speech pathologist before I, in my first job after graduate school. So again, it's not really relevant, but some people, we've had some amazing, traffic engineers and people like that applying for boards and committees. Like, that's really specific and useful. And yes, please mention it. So, and then a letter of interest and any additional information, rather than saying like, please attach a resume. Because some people are not in a place in their life where they have a resume ready. And I hate the idea that people aren't applying for boards and committees because they think they need a formal official resume. It's not that kind of thing. It's not a job. You're not getting paid. You're going to give a lot of free time. I can't think of other volunteer jobs where you need a resume that are of this nature, really. But if people have a resume, again, and they think it's useful and relevant, we love to see them. So, and then a nice thank you at the end. So anyway, that's my little presentation on that.
Thank you, Kristen. Yeah, I really like these changes. I really appreciate you and Julianne working on these. Comments from other board members? Questions?
Yes.
Jason.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, overall, I'm fine if some of the information that we're seeking is being collected and the phrasing of some of these questions is improved in this format. That's fine with me. As I look at the numbered items here, it just seems to me, 8 and 10, 8 asks about occupation or volunteer work that's relevant, 10 asks about educational background that's relevant. It seems to me all that could just be combined into one inquiry for that purpose. I do think, yeah, and it's captured here. Have you been able to attend or watch any meetings of the BCC? I mean, I certainly think that when there are multiple candidates potentially for limited number of spots, then as if their qualifications seem to be similar and it's difficult to choose among them, then someone's prior engagement in some fashion would be considered to be, a tiebreaker or a relevant distinguisher in order to make a selection. I do note that one question on our current application asks if people regularly attend town meeting, and I would argue that's kind of a similar consideration depending on what board committee that they're seeking to be appointed to. If it's municipal code and bylaw, if it's zoning board of appeals, I mean, there certainly are some committees that do have some interlock with town meeting. And once again, if you have applicants for some of those boards and committees, then all things being equal, if some candidate has a demonstrated attendance at town meeting, while another one does not, that again would, to me, be a distinguisher in who to choose. So I don't think I want to see that question omitted from the new application form. I think it's as relevant as some of the other information that's being garnered here. Certainly, it's not necessarily a primary consideration in choosing somebody or a necessary qualification in choosing something, but it certainly could be a distinguishing element among candidates who are otherwise very similar.
One of the reasons that I think I would like to see that question dropped is I worry that there are a large number of boards, committees, and commissions that aren't extremely relevant to town meeting. Certainly zoning board obviously is, municipal code and bylaw is critical, cultural council, community affairs, a number of other committees it would not be, and library trustees. My concern would be to list a question that some people may say, oh, this is a disqualification or a risk of a disqualification because I have not attended town meeting and therefore I'm not going to apply. I think for the cases of boards that have direct contribution to town meeting, that's a necessary question, I think, for the interview process to ask. I wouldn't want it on a form because just for those committees. Kristen.
Could we make a special question that says, if you are applying for municipal code and bylaw, zoning board of appeals, and whatever other boards and committees it would apply to, please answer this question, and then say, do you regularly attend town meeting? Because this could be fixed with this difference of opinion could totally be fixed with words with a question. You know, we could just add one more question. I'm fine with that. I think I see it especially with municipal code and bylaw. I just hadn't even thought of that. I mean, I get the planning articles at town meeting would apply to ZBA people too, right? Definitely. But the muni code and bylaw is a really interesting one. And yes, you would think those people would want to be the people who would go to town meeting. And if they weren't, that would be a red flag. So, I mean, we could put a specific question just for that. And we could try it.
Or you could simply say that a no answer to this question is not disqualifying.
Julianne?
So I think what Kristen described is that we tried to make the language friendlier. You know, a lot of the questions are the same, where we just tried to rephrase it so that people didn't think that if they hadn't attended a meeting that of a committee that they're applying to, that you know, they're disqualified. So how do you feel about changing the town meeting question to, have you been able to attend town meeting? And kind of, you know, asking it more gently and implying that if they haven't, they will still, of course, be considered. And to Jason's point, you know, the interview subcommittee and the board would look carefully at applicants for something like municipal code and bylaw.
John?
I just want to make sure that folks understand under the town code that the chairman of every board and committee is technically required to attend town meeting or designate somebody else from their board or committee to attend. I'm not sure that we don't strictly chase everybody down, but the point is that if you're serving on a board or committee, you should be attending town meeting if possible. So, but certainly the chairs are required by code to attend town meeting.
Good to know, which isn't part of the interview process because boards generally choose their own chair, but that's a good reminder. And I would hope that if somebody got involved in some new committee for them and hadn't attended town meeting, the exposure to the discussion about such topics would draw them in. Anybody else have any questions? Comments, thoughts? It sounds like the only input or sorry, Jason, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, as far as our process forward goes, what's the next step? Is somebody going to actually draft an application in application form and then present that at a future meeting?
What I would suggest is that it sounds like we have consensus with the only possible variation being the town meeting question. I would suggest that Kristen work with Di in drafting. My assumption, John, is that Di deals with the actual form, and
yeah, Di can put it into a format based on this.
Yeah, exactly. So she would put something together with Kristen's input based on our discussion for consideration at a future meeting. We're not voting on anything now, but we could come back and vote at our next meeting when that's put together to solidify and make this official. And maybe the town meeting question, because there's some variation in opinions here, maybe there could be a couple of options on that form and we could sort that out there, but it doesn't sound like otherwise there would be any differences of opinion. Does that sound like a reasonable approach?
Yeah.
Jason, does that answer your question for his process?
Sure. That's fine.
Okay, good. All right, everybody okay with that?
Yeah, thank you.
Kristen, thank you very much for putting this together. I really appreciate it. There's I agree that some of the ways the questions were posed before, particularly the resume question, probably did concern some people. And I did get questions from a couple of people who were new to the process, considering to apply. And one of them was a retired person, hadn't worked in a number of years. And what do you mean a resume? What should I put on the resume? And they were worried about how to assemble the resume. And I had to assure them that that wasn't important. And in this case, the person ended up not applying at all. I don't know whether it had anything to do with that question. I saw a hand up a moment ago in the attendees. I don't see it now. So I think the question, I hope, has been answered. And that prompted the hand to go up. Laura Zeiton, I'm going to bring you in. Hi,
Just
Laura.
a quick piece of, hi, I appreciate it, Laura Zeiton, 17 Franklin Circle. I just wanted to mention, as someone that's really passionate about town meeting and the importance of it, I run into people all the time that don't know what it is. It's not really common in other parts of the country. So if we're going to include it, it would be good to explain what it is. And I think even as a town, we could do more to raise awareness around what it is and how important it is for people to attend. But that was my only feedback on that one. And I think it could definitely deter people because it seems required with the way the current application is written. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Okay, I don't see any other questions, and there's no vote on this item tonight. So I think that closes discussion on that, unless anybody had anything else at the last possible second. We have next execution of cemetery deeds. Would someone like to make a motion on
Yes,
that?
Mr. Chair, I move the board vote to approve cemetery deed 1162 as presented.
Second.
Motion's been made by Scott, seconded by Jason. Any discussion? All those in favor, Jason,
Aye.
Kristen,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Julianne.
Aye.
I also vote aye. Vote is unanimous in favor. John, is there any other business?
No other business this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, anybody have any other business? I don't think so. In which case, I will open it up for the final public comment of the evening. If anyone in the audience would like to speak to anything. Going once, going twice, gone. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I will give the motion to Scott and the second to Kristen. All those in favor, Scott,
Aye.
Kristen,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Julianne.
Aye.
I also vote aye. Vote is unanimous in favor. We are adjourned at 8:33 p.m. Thank you very much, everyone. Happy holidays.